Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of our Absolute Universe recap and reviews series. We're going to be talking about month 8 of DC's Absolute Universe here. That's going to be the issue 8s of all the main original titles, Batman, Wonder Woman, and Superman, and it's going to be the issue 3s of the newer titles in Martian Manhunter, Flash, and Green Lantern. Yeah, that's
right. Yeah, make sure that you check out the rest of the playlist for
Yes.
catch-ups from the past 7 months. And
right.
let's jump into what's happening right now in the DC Absolute Universe.
That's right. We're going to start off with Absolute Batman issue 8, which is the final issue drawn by fill-in artist Marcos Martin of this 2-issue arc, and of course the series is written by Scott Snyder. We finished off the last issue, the first issue of this arc, with the reveal of Victor Fries being this grotesque version of Mr. Freeze.
Victor Fries Jr.
Yes. And we are open this issue with Freeze putting Bruce into one of his freezing chambers, telling him that the rest are filled with many of Gotham's elite, and there are a bunch of chambers filled with these freaky frozen people. Freeze leaves as Bruce is undergoing this freezing process, and Bruce kind of has visions of past encounters, particularly one with his friends, where he's arguing with Waylon, who calls him a coward for going on the suicide mission to go after Black Mask. And he also remembers his father's death, before this finally all kind of spurs him into using his cast for his, broken wrist and arm. And it opens up and has a little batarang launcher inside.
Well, we've seen before, I believe, that his cast turns into a full bat outfit.
Yes.
Yeah, so he's got his whole bat suit in there.
But it has this little launcher inside of it here. Which he uses to escape the freezing chamber. He then confronts Freeze as Batman. There's your, where it came from in his cast. He confronts Freeze as Batman, and after initially having the upper hand, Freeze manages to stun him just long enough to unlock the freeze chambers and let out all these creepy frozen people who start to attack Batman as a horde, and Batman realizes that they are literally falling apart as he touches and fights them. And they just keep coming, leading him to believe that they seemingly want to die. And this leads him to decide to retreat, and he jumps out of the building. And then he calls his friend Waylon to let him know to gather all of their friends. But we end the issue with Waylon being chloroformed and abducted by men that say he is the perfect specimen, and they're planning to take him to Arc M.
Yes, because I think the spooky thing with what was going with Freeze is he's talking to these mysterious benefactors, and he's the snow that he brought about, it charted everybody's genetic material, so they were able to look at Waylon, and we can assume find him suitable for cross-contamination with crocodile DNA. I can only assume.
One will only assume that this is a croconing.
Yeah, a croconing, absolutely.
What do you call turning somebody into a crocodile?
No, I think a croconing works, absolutely.
Yeah, right? Yeah, that's what I'm going for. So, Katie, how did you feel about Absolute Batman?
I really loved this issue. I thought this was really fantastic. I think that it does a really good job as a fill-in arc for setting a bunch of stuff up. The fact that Scott Snyder uses this as an opportunity to really lay the groundwork for the croconing. He also did such a good job of using this as it's such a good term. I'm sorry, you did a great job. It also did a great job of making me feel a lot for the Crime Alley kids. They're having this we're having these flashbacks to essentially the funeral of Matches Malone.
Yeah.
And we see Waylon being this leader of the group, this kind of wise figure in the group.
I also, it was all done in silhouette. I just want to shout that out, which was really, really nice.
Super rad. I really love that this duo of issues, I feel like I would be thrilled to read it as just one continuous thing. I might even go back later today and just reread the duo, because I feel like it created just one really great oversized issue in a way that it was really great to read with all of the spooky Victor Fries stuff, but also really great for the series. Like, it felt like a fill-in with purpose. I really enjoyed that.
Absolutely. I think Freeze is still my favorite, not just like out of every character I think so far that's been reimagined in the Absolute Universe, I still think Freeze is my favorite. It's just the perfect level of keeping like the core of the character and what the character's about with a really cool twist that like makes it different for this different universe. So absolutely, I think my favorite twist on a character so far in this universe. I agree with you. It was really, really great issue, and I really like this duology and this fill-in arc. It was really, really great. And like the thing is, I think something that we've talked about a lot in the Absolute Universe that we'll continue to talk about here. I think what just makes this feel so good is that there is all these clashing of personalities with Bruce. Like he's constantly up against both physical threats, but also like these emotional and personality threats. There's this banging of, you know, what's right, and what's wrong, and what he should believe, and how other characters feel about both him and Batman. And it just feels really good because in a lot of these books, we don't quite have those clashing personalities, which is what I think a lot of the books are missing. So seeing that played out so much in this issue with the matches Malone Flash, which is only like maybe 2 pages worth, I think, if that. I think it's 2 pages. I think we have an initial, and then we go back to him, and I think we have it again. So I think it's 2 pages.
There was some of it that was mixed in when he was
there was some dialogue from it, that was like mixed in and stuff.
That Wayland dialogue in there was so wonderful. Yes, I love that.
But like even with that limited space, like that's just you don't need to dedicate so much of your book to it. You can still spend most of your time on plot and have that in there. And I think that's what Absolute Batman does so well.
Yeah, it is truly a testament. Like Scott Snyder made this universe, and he knew exactly what he wanted out of Absolute Batman. And it really is such a blueprint for what I hope everything in the Absolute Universe gets to be. Because he does such a good job with it. But speaking of other things in the Absolute Universe, we've got Absolute Wonder Woman, number 8. The writer is Kelly Thompson, and our main artist is back on this one with Hayden Sherman.
A 2-issue fill-in arc just ended before this, because none of the Absolute books are on the same
which is crazy. I'll complain about that a little more when we get to Flash. I think it's insane. Like, oh my goodness.
It's on a whole different world than everything.
It really is. It really is. But Hayden Sherman is back, as is Diana. She's back from the underworld and has reunited with her friends in Gateway City and begins her search for fellow Amazons. With a powerful spell dedicated to the goddesses who created her, Diana raises the Herion, a beautiful temple to call her home in the mortal world. But all is not well in the wake of the Tetracide, deep beneath the ground in Area 41. Dr. Poison, incorporeal and agitated, is trapped and working under Veronica Cale, who has brought the Doctor a sample from the terrifying cry of the Tetracide. Even in its recorded form, it retains some of its maddening power. Diana's tour of her new, for her new friends of her new home is cut short when her enhanced hearing catches these sounds as they're deployed, emitted from robotic spiders that Cale and Poison have unleashed on Gateway City. Fighting through the despair and fear and madness the sound brings, Diana follows them to their source, confronting Dr. Poison, only to be told that the Doctor knows where she can find an Amazon. Jay, how'd you feel about Absolute Wonder Woman number 8?
This is the number one culprit of what I was talking about at the end of the last one, where none of the personalities conflict with her at all. I think that's what made the fill-in arc so great, is because we had like Hades and these characters that were from more of the mythological side. They were rubbing up against her more, which added a lot more tension. All of her like human friends have no conflict, no differing of personalities. Like they are just like singing her praises. I think we have lines in this that are just by Steve that are like, you just have to let Wonder Woman do what she does
constantly.
Because she's
constantly.
That is the big thing that is bothering me about Absolute Wonder Woman. That being said, there's a lot to like in this issue, particularly Dr. Poison, who I really, really like this version of.
She's like this incorporeal gaseous self.
This is a very cool version of Dr. Poison that has me.
Yes.
And the Amazon finally seeing some of the Amazon thing, take root and start being progressed here is also really, really exciting for me. And having Hayden Sherman back, I love the fill-in artist. Utterly love the fill-in artist.
Super
but Hayden Sherman is just like
arena combat.
The visual of this book, like the style. I think we talked about that with the Absolute. A lot of the Absolute books are kind of built on the artistic style as well, which is what makes the fill-in artist feel a little bit different than like when a normal book does it. Yeah, because a lot of the Absolute books are meant to be so stylistic that the art plays a big role in that. So,
like, heaven forbid if they need a fill-in artist for Martian Manhunter.
Oh God. But yeah, so there's a lot to like in this issue. I just still wish that any of the human characters could get a little bit of personality and a little bit of more to rub up against Wonder Woman.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think that we're getting a little bit of that with Cheetah. She's obviously not able to do a lot with it in this issue because Steve keeps being like, shut up and just listen to Wonder Woman. But I'm really hoping that they're able to kind of blossom that into either an exciting rivalry or an actual like character dynamic between
I hope so, because my concern is that that's just going to be, she's going to, you know, not rub up against Wonder Woman until she breaks bad, and then it's like, oh well, then she's just a villain. Like, I want some of her friends to have something there, you know?
Yes, please. And I think that it's a little tough. As we keep going with Wonder Woman, we talked about the fact that Absolute Superman kind of started as our least favorite and then rocketed up as it's gone. Wonder Woman started on such a high, and that fill-in,
the fill-in was great.
Fill-in was so good, but I'm worried that we're continuing on the trajectory from before where I'm like, okay, how did we get back to Gateway City? Like, we didn't see her reunite with her friends. Like, her friend, which would have been a very great scene to have to feel the emotions of her friendships. I also feel like we are meant to just understand that Steve and Diana have this long friendship. He has, like, all of this authority over how to deal with her. Like you were saying, he's constantly like, no, just let her do her thing. And saying things like, well, this is what it's like being friends with Diana. And I'm like, the only time we've seen you be friends with Diana is when you were trapped in the underworld. And that was like montage flashback. I don't buy it from Steve, especially when he seems so uncurious about her. Like, he just seems very in awe of her, and it makes it really difficult to like buy into their friendship. And the fact that there was no like reuniting when she came back from hell or anything, it's like, okay, cool, so this just isn't important to Diana's story, so why do we have them here? So I found that actually incredibly frustrating with this issue. I do think that the villain of Kale, who from my vague memory is like normally a businesswoman, I think. So I like the twist of her being like a government person, like a shady, you know, Area 51 government goon. And Dr. Poison, I think that their relationship was super great and they had really strong characterization. And like you're saying, I'm really hoping that that comes to butt with Wonder Woman, because otherwise it just, like, it's visually stunning. It's no secret to listeners of the pod that I love Hayden Sherman's art.
You don't say.
Look, I think it's really neat. And I think that there's so much potential to this book. We've talked time and again about
it's conceptually maybe the strongest
ideas
out of all
Kelly Thompson has. But it feels like they're just not being executed in a way that does them justice.
I think it is easily, like, if you gave me like the general premise of the way that each of the main characters were being changed from their main universe, I would say Wonder Woman was by far the best idea and the best concept. It's you know, I think you go Batman where it's like maybe it's not different enough. Then you go Superman where it's like maybe you're going too far, and that I think is the way that I feel about a lot of the other newer books as well. Which like Wonder Woman feels like this perfect blend of like, okay, still last of the Amazon, still Wonder Woman, but actually just like, what if she ended up here instead of here? You know, like what if she was raised by somebody different? What if she has that little bit of different background? It's so conceptually strong, which is what makes some of the stumbling so frustrating.
And so many of the ideas are really strong. Like the whole thing with her like magic robot arm is so cool. Her relationship with Pegasus is great. I love the idea of, you know, Pegasus,
who's also just not in this issue.
Which is very rude.
With like a throwaway line.
He's such a good boy. Let me have him. I just every bit of this is so cool, and then I read the book and I'm like, wait, do I not enjoy reading this? But I have eternal faith, and at the very least, Hayden Sherman keeps me coming back for more. And again, the ideas are so
arc that was really, really strong as well. So you know, giving it, you know, some benefit.
Yeah,
but we have more things.
We sure do. We have Superman to talk about.
We have Superman. We have Absolute Superman issue 8. This is written by Jason Aaron with art from Rafa Sandoval. And this we open on Ra's al Ghul. Finally, like in all his large Ra's al Ghul. You'd think that we were reading Absolute Batman.
He's gonna eventually have to fight Batman. I mean, maybe he doesn't, but like. It
is the thing that makes you think, like, maybe he is still part of the Batman universe, right? Even in this universe, because he's got that absolute Batman size. But anyway, Ra's al Ghul's fighting some Omega Men while he's on a call with, and I love this, the board of shareholders.
The League of Shareholders. Insane. Jason Aaron, you madman.
And we learn he's over, while he's on this call fighting the Omega Man, we learn that he's over 200 years old, and he now calls himself the God's Head, but he does specifically mention that he did used to call himself the Demon's Head, so still kind of that.
Other people called him the Demon's Head.
Sorry, you're right. Other people did.
He's calling himself the God's Head.
He then kills several Omega Men before using a Lazarus Pit to turn one into a baby and drop it off the building. And once again, something that made me think we were reading Absolute Batman again.
Horrifying.
Utterly, horrifying is the word for it. We then see Kal-El visit Martha Kent in his civilian clothes, but she doesn't recognize him, originally thinking that he is Jonathan, and then starting to freak out and scream, forcing him to leave before people will come and discover him.
As we saw all the way back in like issue 5 or something, she's in a memory carry.
She is. Yes, indeed.
Which honestly made me really sad, and that whole scene had me a little misty eyed.
Yeah, it was a little rough. But then, as he's walking through the streets, he's found by both Jimmy Olsen, or Agent Alpha, if you want to call him that, and Lois Lane. And the pair immediately start arguing with each other over what to do with Superman, which one of them's on the right side, all of that good stuff. Before Kal is forced to turn into a Superman suit to try to like break them up and actually get on track. But he is then shot by a glowing green bullet, which we all know what that means, but they don't. None of these characters exactly do, and so they're kind of shocked as to Superman actually getting hurt by a bullet. Lois and Jimmy get Kal out of there and hide him in a drugstore as Peacemaker Smith, now augmented in this like kind of cyborgy purple crazy suit with wires coming out of his head. Yeah. He has arrived with other Peacemakers that now like worship him as if he is like some sort of, epic hero. And they are after Superman. Lois and Jimmy argue too much to actually help Superman at all, as he is in needing of recovery. But luckily, Soul, his suit, purges the bullet, allowing him to get back up and fight with Peacemaker Smith in what is a pretty cool fight. He has a helmet come down and it goes into like full. We saw it kind of when they were in space before.
I was gonna say, I feel like we saw on his
Krypton.
Mother.
Yeah. We saw, I think, with several of them on Krypton. Yeah. But yeah, this is our first time seeing Superman on Earth in like the full Superman suit with it, which I really, really exciting. It was really cool.
Rafa
he then goes into full
so
super speed fighting. He takes out the other Peacemakers basically with just his like speed, knocking them down before he attacks Peacemaker Smith, dropping him as he tells him that he punched him 1,000 times in 30 seconds and he should stay down. But as he is hesitating, trying to talk to Smith to keep him down instead of fighting him, Smith is able to shoot Superman several more times with kryptonite bullets. And just as Smith is about to shoot him in the head, he is suddenly electrocuted or shut down. It looks like an electrocution, but it might be more of like a shutdown from Brainiac, who tells him that he is not actually supposed to kill Superman and he can't step out alive. Superman, then heavily hurt from multiple shots, reaches out to Jimmy, asking him to get him out of there, and Jimmy calls the Omega Men. They seemingly open a boom tube.
They absolutely open a boom tube.
Everything in the Absolute Universe that is quote unquote obvious, you gotta say, seemingly, because you don't know.
Fair enough.
It is sound effect as boom, which does give great boom tube vibes, but who knows? They rush through, they rescue Superman, but they keep Lois from following them through, leaving Lois surrounded by Peacemakers and forced to surrender.
Which, oh my god. One, I really enjoyed this issue. I think that this was a really fun issue. It brought a lot of really great action that I think that Sandoval has been so good with. And it brought a lot of the character interaction that I've been missing.
Yes,
which
fully
Superman
agree.
Doesn't get to interact with Jimmy and Lois a whole lot because they're kind of too busy fighting each other to actually interact with him. but it brought so much personality to like the present day of Absolute Superman, which is something that I feel like has been missing a whole lot.
Yeah, fully agree.
I loved the sequence with Martha. It was so sad. Like, it was legitimately so heartbreaking because Lois, being, you know, ace reporter she is in any universe, like,
despite
calls Superman out
in this universe.
Yes, look, you can't assume anything in the Absolute universe, but Lois Lane, she's always an ace reporter, even if that's not her job. She like starts calling Superman out for all of these emotional beats, and it's like, I'm gonna cry. I'm gonna cry over Absolute Superman, who was the last one on his planet and was not able to find somewhere to call home on Earth. Like, that is so tragic and sad and heartbreaking. And I loved it. I do think it's a little frustrating for Lois to be left behind, because I'm like, I get it, but I what I'm waiting for in this book, like the one thing that I'm waiting for still, because otherwise it's such a good book, I just want that trio dynamic, if that's going to be something that happens, which it seems very much like it is.
Yeah, it seems like that's certainly going to happen at some point here.
It's like, come on, I want to see the three of them, even if they don't like each other yet, interacting with each other. No, I got it a little bit here, but then they leave Lois behind. How did you like this issue?
I like this issue a whole lot for a lot of the same reasons you said. This is a great. I know we technically saw Ra's, I think, at the end 2 issues ago is when he was the End Stinger.
Yes.
Yeah, I believe we saw him as an End Stinger a couple of issues ago. But like, for his first real introduction, this is a killer villain introduction.
Amazing.
He's talking with the League of Shareholders, like, as he's doing this, which makes it feel low effort to him. It's also like an exposition-y, you know, telling you a lot about him, but you get the action throughout, so it doesn't feel boring. And then you get what is just some utterly horrific villain moments of him dropping a baby off of a building. Which is horrific. So that, huge, utterly love that as the opening. But the big thing that I think this issue did that was like one of my main criticisms about Absolute Superman is this issue introduced nuance to the book. Like, I feel like the book's been a little bit too heavy-handed and like, you know, not really operating in those like grays or those kind of difficult conversations, different ideas. Like, I felt like it was very much like, these are the evil people doing all of the evil things, and you know, this was a very nice issue to see Lois and Jimmy, and like because they introduce a lot of nuance, because they're both with fairly not perfect organizations. I say not perfect. Lois is straight up evil.
Yes.
Actually, also maybe straight up terrorists, but we don't know enough about them.
Hard to tell.
Yeah. But they introduce a lot of nuance because they obviously don't. They both have shown some hesitation. Lois more so, because Lois is kind of, I think, further into her arc against her organization than Jimmy is with his. But they've both shown some hesitations with the way that their organizations are operating, and they both have this shared. They even say, I think, at one point, where they're like, we can't agree on anything except for Superman. And I really like that. I like the nuance that introduces to this book, and I think that it was sorely needed. And it's the big thing that I think this issue really has me now excited for the series moving forward. The last couple issues did too, but those were kind of less on Superman, which always makes it like you don't know how it's going to be when we get back to him. Yeah, I'm really liking the direction of this book now. I think I think it was slow at the beginning, but I think now it's moving where it needs to go.
Absolutely agree. We have speaking of slow. Oh wait, never mind. Wait, so yes, Flash is next. I was trying to make my smooth transition there.
And then you stopped yourself.
I did, because I thought I got overexcited, but no, Absolute Flash is next. The writer is Jeff Lemire. The artist is Nick Robles. And this is the final issue of the first arc of Absolute Flash, which is crazy because it's issue 3. And so no other... This is where I want to complain real quick about Absolute Editorial. It would be so nice if they all had like the same size arcs, and like their stories were moving at the same pace. But no, Batman had that random fill-in in like issue 3 or whatever, so it's out of step
or 5
of Wonder Woman and Superman. And now Absolute Flash is ending its first arc at 3, where the other ones I believe are going till 5 or 6. And it's like a small gripe, but as someone who's reading every single Absolute book, I'm like, I feel like it would be nice. It would be nice if they were all...
I agree. For sure.
But this is the final issue of the first arc of Absolute Flash, and it delivers on the cliffhanger introduction of Gorilla Grodd, the fearsome psychic ape who, in this universe, is a tiny green lab monkey. A real cutie patootie. No ifs, ands, and buts about it. Grodd was able to track Wally as he ran from Captain Cold and the other rogues that were sent by Colonel West to find him. And the two share a little psychic connection E.T. style in an abandoned barn. Grodd and Wally find a common ground in the loss of their mothers, and Grodd breaks from his directives to instead help Wally. The two escape Captain Cold and the rogues yet again, and Wally finds peace, or at least as much of it as he can, about the death of Barry Allen, and recovers Barry's uniform, ready to enter the world anew as the Flash, with his little monkey sidekick.
I really like the Grodd and Wally pairing. Like that was a really cool thing. I like Grodd a lot in this issue. It's a very cool twist on Grodd. It does maybe lean into like you made a big change compared to some of the more like subtle changes.
Yeah.
But no, I think that the Grodd is a highlight of this issue. What is interesting to me is this being a 3-issue arc. This is still the slowest moving book, despite having its first arc being 3 issues. This was an issue. These first 3 issues were really like an issue worth of story. Like,
and it's saying something that it's the slowest moving after the first 5 issues of Wonder Woman took place over an hour.
Yeah. It barely moves. And a lot of that is because so much of it is dedicated to these huge, like, 2-page spreads and these big visuals. And like, it's visually stunning and it's amazing on that sense. And I really like the it is one of the books that I think, and some of that might be because it's moved so little, so there's not much, I have like the least amount of criticisms with the direction and with the choices for the characters and stuff. I like a lot of what Absolute Flash is doing that wise, but it is moving so slow. And we've talked about before, we're like, oh, that's less of a concern when you don't have a mini and you have an ongoing. This is treading into the just too slow category regardless, in my personal opinion.
I think one of the tricky things with it is that it's moving slow and it's repeating things. Like, we've had, I think, 4 or 5 interactions between Wally and the rogues, and every single time it's just, and Wally runs away. Yeah. Like in this one, he tries to stop and fight, but
he does. He fights for the first time in this issue. That's a good.
But he does end with him running away because, he's a child being attacked by a group of military operatives. So I think that's what makes it feel particularly slow to me. Is the fact that it feels like we're seeing the same thing again and again as well. I really liked the introduction of Grodd. I think it's really interesting. This is the first, I guess, depending on how you want to frame Martian Manhunter, the first one where we have like kind of, it seems like we're going to have 2 main characters, like we're going to have a sidekick situation. At least that's the vibe I get from Grodd, is he and Wally are on the same side.
Yeah,
and like Grodd is super powered, so I think it'll be really interesting to see if we get a kind of like boy and his dog style story about Wally and Grodd, which I think would be incredibly interesting. And I have no doubt that Jeff Lemire would be able to pull it off. But I think that it is interesting that we have kind of a shared lead situation, perhaps. Like, Grodd's still with him. He's riding around on his shoulder. I'd love to see little Gorilla Grodd. Do they still call him Gorilla?
I think they just call him Grodd.
Yeah,
just call him Grodd.
Little baby boy Grodd be like a sidekick character. I think that'd be a fun thing to see in the Absolute universe as a sidekick.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting direction. I like everything this book is doing directionally. Just speed up a little bit, like do a little bit more in your issues,
The irony.
Yeah. Flash going slow.
But next up, we've got Absolute Martian Manhunter #3, which is not the end of its first arc. The writer is Denise Camp, and the artist is Javier Rodriguez. 24 strangers set 24 sleeping homeless people on fire, all at the exact same time. The kicker? None of them know each other. There seems to be no connection between them, but an ethereal smoke only visible to John Jones, host of The Martian, that grants him Martian vision. I feel the need to explain who he is every time I do a recap, because I'm like, otherwise it makes no sense. Like, I can just say Wally in the other one, but I'm like, yes, John Jones, who is host to The Martian, who is not the Martian Manhunter necessarily. We'll find out.
We don't know what the Martian is. Like, that's the... Yeah.
But as John tries to navigate dealing with his newfound telepathic powers, his crumbling relationship with his wife, and an alien threat to the entire Earth that the Martian in his head can't seem to articulate, it's a lot going on for him. The arson spree continues and escalates, with homes, playgrounds, and anywhere that offers safety and comfort to humans going up in flames. And John and his Martian find the center of it. The White Martian John has been warned. Kind of warned about. It's tough with the Martian in his head. Yeah. But they've got kind of the White Martian is bad and it's coming to destroy the world vibes happening. And the White Martian is burning down a homeless shelter. John is able to save most of the residents, I think, with the abilities granted to him by his companion, but it seems that the fire is just the beginning as they confront the White Martian, and it informs John that the fire is not what's important, but the smoke. And they name drop Ja'ans in there at the very end, which is exciting. I guess that's our confirmation that this is, in fact, Ja'ans. Technically.
Yeah, which is confusing, because I do think we have explicitly been told that the Martian is not from Mars. So we'll see where that goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a funky book. This is a very funky book.
It's a funky book.
Which makes it very hard to review and talk about. It is visually stunning. Can we start there? It's a visually stunning book.
Oh my god, the colors.
It's such a visually stunning book.
I need to throw back to Absolute Batman real quick, because I meant to shout it. The colors in Absolute Batman with this villain arc have been so cool.
Oh yeah, those like pale blues and stuff. Oh my god, great,
amazing. But the colors here also phenomenal. The
colors here phenomenal. All right, phenomenal. You've got all the stuff like the layered word bubbles and all that kind of crazy stuff with like voices in his head and all those kinds of things. Like, they do a good job of making you kind of feel with him, which is like somewhat an interesting comic book thing, like where they almost want you to be confused in certain ways, which is always an interesting reading experience that I always have mixed feelings on. It's an interesting thing, because I still don't know that I know what this book is going for, where it's going. But at the same time, it's clearly very like carefully thought out and carefully done, which is, obviously a good thing. So it's a hard book to review. I do like us getting more, Martian Manhunter related things pulled in here. You mentioned the name drop. Also, though, like the White Martian being more of a thing that's like being mentioned. I like that because it's at least tying us more into, who the character is, because this is the book that I'm most concerned about not really being a version of the character so much as in anything but name only. So yeah, there's I am still 3 issues in, unsure how I feel about this book, which is, a tough thing.
I am still 3 issues in, really enjoying this book. I think that I share your concerns about the like characterization of Jean. Like, I think that we talked last week, I think, about how it feels like a book that could have just been like a not absolute book and like be about a random Martian. And that would have been possibly a less confusing or less controversial delivery of this really cool story. I think that what they've got going on is so fun and cool. I think that the way that they show everything, like you were saying, I just agree with a lot of what you said. I think that everyone on this team is working towards a common goal, and that it feels like everybody
it's clearly
has
very
cool
carefully
ideas.
crafted book.
Yeah,
like I don't want, like, none of my criticism is like, oh, this is a poorly made book or they're not doing like their job. Everybody is doing a very good job. It's just the direction it confuses me in certain ways.
Yeah, that's very fair, and I do think that it's great that we're getting more like forward movement with the Martian plot.
Yes,
because totally especially agreed. Last issue, it was very John as the human focused.
Yes.
And it was like how he's dealing with the Martian in his head. And that probably could have been a larger part of issue 1 and kept us moving on the Martian path a bit more. I'm somewhat hoping that the reveal ends up being that he's like in some way a memory wiped Martian or something, or even if it's not literally a Martian, I have no problem with their explanation of like Martian is just like the most appropriate word for where I'm from.
I gotcha.
So I'm kind of hoping for that, because I feel like then we might be able to spin more into a truer to, alternate universe.
Yeah. I think the interesting thing is that it was intended as a 6-issue mini originally, so I'm interested to see where we get at 6 and then what they do moving forward. I do think that means at least most of the answers will come by issue 6, which is at least a nice thing to kind of know. But then it's like, oh, is it not meant to be an ongoing? Like, is the reveal just going to be that it's not really a Martian thing and that it's, some sort of other thing? Is that going to be a great reveal for like an end of a book and not a great reveal for like, oh, we're not
starting a series?
So yeah, I have a lot of questions, but I think we're much closer to getting the true answers with this book than we are with a lot of the other books,
Yes.
So,
but we have one book left to talk about.
Yes, we've got Absolute Green Lantern issue 3, writer Al Ewing and artist Janoy Lindsay. We open on John Stewart inspecting a gold ring as Todd Rice, which is an interesting character to pull into this.
Can you tell me who that is? Because I do not know.
That's Obsidian, one of Alan Scott's kids.
Okay, cute.
Yeah, interesting character. I don't know if that's like just a name drop to be a name drop, which I could certainly see it being.
I don't know. It's what happens later in the issue.
Yeah, that's true. But anyway, he's inspecting this ring as Todd Rice talks to him about the status of Coast City. There's a barrier around the city that's causing those away to just like turn away from it and not interact with it at all. They have no cops, no mail, and nothing coming in from outside. They do still have power though, so at least that's something.
So the frozen food is keeping.
Yes, which is very important. They're talking about giving out food to people, all that kind of stuff. And John finally reveals that he's inspecting this ring because it's an earring, and it's the only thing that survived when somebody went through the barrier and was completely obliterated. This leads to John throwing the ring through the barrier, and it passes through. We then jump to Hal and Joe back at the bar where we had left off. And Hal uses his black hand to shoot at her. This leads to a fight where she fairly handedly wins by blasting him out of the bar, and then she tells him to get the hand under control, or she will. We then have John getting both Hal and Joe to bring them to this spot at the edge of the barrier, and he has told Hal to bring a toy that looks gold, and so he throws that through the barrier, and we see that it has a stronger reaction. So seemingly the size is important because that was bigger than the ring. They then talk about potentially trying real gold. So John takes his grandmother's wedding ring, and as he throws that at the barrier, it practically explodes as a large hole is formed, but only for a couple seconds before it recloses. Hal and Joe then seem interested in getting more gold together to try to get somebody through, but John thinks he has figured out the answer, but he is cut off by a returning Abin Sur.
Yep.
Abin then envelops John in a green energy as he says John has been judged. I think the implication that's meant to be here is you're meant to think that he dies, but it clearly looks different than what happened to Guy when he was killed when he was judged.
Very much so.
Clearly he's not actually killed, but the characters think that he is, and it feels like maybe it's meant to be a little bit of a fake out where you are going to think that that's what happened. This then leads to Todd trying to fire a shotgun at Abin Sur, but Abin teleports away, and Hal ends the issue walking away from the group before he says somebody needs to find an answer, and he paints. We close on a shot of him painting bullets gold.
Which, love that ending shot. And importantly, when Todd shoots at Abin Sur, he says the same thing that he had said to John before, where he's like, prepare for judgment or whatever. So it seems like because I think
he might be the next one getting judged. My thought is that he might just get killed the same way that Guy was, so that we see that some people
maybe, but I think Guy got killed immediately, didn't he?
Yes, immediately as he was judged, but Todd, I don't think actually gets judged.
Okay,
here.
fair enough.
My guess is that they want some characters to die in addition to the characters that are like actually going to have things happen. And if they're willing to kill Guy Gardner, I'm guessing they're willing to kill Obsidian.
No, what I'm saying is, it seems like maybe they're going to make him a Green Lantern.
Yeah. I know that was my
Fair enough. It seems that the fact that he wasn't immediately judged, to me, says, oh, maybe they're going to make him a central character, which is, like you said, an interesting choice.
Yeah.
But yeah, my big gripe with this book is, I guess with this specific issue, is I don't understand the bar scene versus the towns. Like, it feels almost like it should be in a, like, flash forward or something. Is it?
No, I believe it's a flashback, actually. Oh, no, wait, actually, because it was kind of... The interesting thing is I don't know where the Jon Stewart scene takes place, is the important thing.
That's kind of what I...
Because based on the original issues, it was forward compared to their original, like, seeing what happened with the alien. But I got the indication that the Jon Stewart scene was supposed to be the most, forward
thing. But the problem is, when Hal had gone to the bar, he was like, I was part of that explosion.
Yeah.
And the people knew what he was talking about. And it seems that there's some sort of psychic barrier around.
And when he's painting the gold bullets, he doesn't have the black hand, but he is hiding his hand in the entire Jon Stewart scene, which is interesting because you think he does have the black hand there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a little confusing here.
So that's my big gripe with this issue specifically. I liked a lot of what Jon had going on. I think that it showed a lot of cleverness and a lot of characterization, like the fact that he recognized, like, oh, somebody was killed going through this barrier, but this ring made it through. That's a clue. And I think that he was portrayed really well and really intelligently. I also think that it's interesting to bring back the vibes of, like, Yellow defeating Green Lanterns.
Yeah. I think Gold is cool. I don't love the gold-colored stuff does as well. I wish they had gone in the direction of fully just real gold. Because it being, like, an element, I think, is much cooler than a color,
Agreed. Fully agreed.
Yeah.
But so that's an interesting choice to bring back. I think that there are a lot of nice pieces of groundwork here that I think I was missing in the other ones, like Jon being judged and disappeared feels like the start of, like, a hero quest. I think that the action we get with Jo using the Green Lantern powers, I think the fact that she doesn't quite understand them came through really well. I feel like the timeline of it all really throws it off for me.
It is jumping really hurt my reading a little much. I fully agree with that. I think the Jon Stewart stuff in this issue is really good, which does propel this, especially as somebody who really enjoys Jon Stewart, into being my favorite issue out of the first three so far.
Fully agree on that.
I think the Jon Stewart characterization is phenomenal. He is the character. I said Jo feels a lot like her normal self as well. The two of them feel like their normal selves, just in a different universe. The rest of the characters don't really, to me, which is unfortunate. At this point, though, that's mainly Guy Gardner who's gone, but also Hal Jordan, which is a big one. Which is like, Hal not really feeling like himself is a big deal. I feel like in this book, but I really like what they did with Jon Stewart here. I really like the actual investigator, like you said, all that is great. And I like him being, taken. That's also very cool. I assume taken. Who knows what happened with the green?
Who knows?
Something happened. And I like that quite a bit. But yeah, I still think this book is not quite at the Martian Manhunter level of different, but in the level to me that is just too different to feel like it's the same, thing, because it just doesn't really feel like, and maybe that'll change once like we have them as full blown heroes, and Abin Sur is either dealt with or leaves or whatever. But like in the general vibes, I like a lot of the story stuff here. Them being like isolated in the town due to the barrier is a cool thing. Abin Sur, if you're not thinking about him as Abin Sur and you're thinking about him as just like this alien that's exerting a lot of power, it's a really cool concept. But the multiple timelines I think is the thing that hurts it the most from like a storytelling perspective, and then from a fan perspective, the amount that's different is a little bit, I think, hard to reconcile. In my opinion. But definitely the best, easily the best issue in my opinion out of the first three.
And Jon Stewart, the best character in there.
Which you know what? Win. Points. That's a win.
Yeah, that's a win. But that's it for the Absolute Month 8 books. Thank you so much for joining us on this.
We usually go with our, or at least I think we started it last month. We go with our favorite, each of our favorite books from the.
Geez. Do you have a favorite one?
It's tight between two for me. But I think still, because it has the better character interactions, I'm gonna still give it to Batman 8 over Superman 8 this month. But I'm gonna go with Batman 8 with this month.
I also am giving it to Batman this month as well. It's tough when the man is the architect of the universe. He knows what he wants the universe to be. Everyone else is, they're working a little harder to get where they're going, right?
Fully.
But super great stuff. be sure to check in with us every single month as we keep you up to date on what's happening in the DC Absolute universe. If you have any questions about what happens, we have read literally every single book, so ask them down below. We've got you covered.
And Katie will give you paragraphs upon paragraphs of an answer.
You can't stop me. I can only write in paragraphs. It's a problem.
The woman with the worst memory has the greatest comic book memory. So you want to remember that random thing from issue 2 of one of the series? She'll know.
I got you. It's only real once I talk about it with Jay. But yeah, be sure to catch this coming Sunday. We have our Strange Sunday Super Show this month. We'll be talking about Kaiju Score from Aftershock Comics.
Yep.
And tune in for our regularly scheduled programming every single Wednesday. We've got our pull list recommendations for the week, excluding the Absolute books, because that's just for you, our Absolute episode listeners. Thank you so much for hanging with us. Yes. And as always,
see you next week, Comic Geeks.